Good morning! Welcome to San Bernardino, California, home of Carey's Fine Automobiles, one of the last original classic car dealerships in Southern California. The building you see behind me, the sign, was all built in the mid-50s and remains true to the era, a true historical landmark. At this time, we still have cars for sale, so my name's Pedro, and I'm going to take you on a quick tour of the facility. Check it out. Now, before we get into the cars, I want to go over the history of Carey's Fine Automobiles. The property that you see here all began construction in 1955 and was officially finished in 1957. So the sign, the building, everything you see behind me is a true testament to the era and the design process of the time. The original dealership of the Carey family was located down the street on 5th, back when everything was a gravel lot, and believe it or not, half the cars were electric. Now, the property itself is the site of the original Paris house. Mr. Paris was a pioneer in the railroads through Southern California, and he had this house spanning the block. By the 1950s, the house itself was in disrepair, so the Carey family purchased the property and went ahead and started construction. And as we see, almost 60 years or so later, we're still here. Now, over the decades, the building itself has only received minimum renovations. As you'll see, it's about as close to being back in the 1950s as you can really be. Now, the business was started by Ray Carey and his brother, but Ray passed away in the late 70s, and that's when his son, Bill Carey, took the torch and allowed the business to continue for decades to come. The building is an original A-frame, typical of the 1950s era. Not too many remain here in town, but we've done the best to make sure that this building itself is maintained for generations to come. Another feature, and very popular in that bygone era, was the large plywood signs typically at the back of the dealerships. Although we don't have the original plywood signs still remaining, we do have the remnants of the poles that would hang it up. And as you see, the poles are about 30 feet tall, and in those days you would have these gigantic plywood signs painted with the owner's name, the business, and used cars, of course. That being said, didn't stand up to the wind more than anything here. Starting with the 1950 Buick Super 8 Coupe. This vehicle is retrofitted with airbag suspension, fully updated leather interior. You've got your airbag controller hooked up to a 12-volt system, wireless Bluetooth, of course, hidden for that period correct era. You have the auxiliary fan switch for those hotter days. Now let's look at the original engine. This vehicle impressively retains its original Buick straight 8. 2-barrel carburetor, as original as it can be, drives the highway great, has a Cadillac transmission of the era in order to maintain those highway speeds at ease. Up next, we have the 66 El Camino. This El Camino has been fitted with a late 60s Corvette engine, and you'll see has retained most of its original chrome pieces, the louvered hood. This interior is a full console interior. Black leather, no major restoration from what I've understood. Power windows, AC, full console with clock. Power steering is incredible. Now, unfortunately, this vehicle was rear-ended at one point, and we just never got around to doing the necessary repairs. As you'll see, a talented body shop could definitely bring this car back to life. This was the original shop truck for many years. As you'll see, still retains the original Carey's logo. Now, as far as the interior, car was very beautifully kept. Now, up next, we got the 1940 Ford Coupe. This vehicle, with its stance, you'll see has the lowering blocks on the rear, has the gas shock suspension up front, has a 350 engine to a 350 transmission. Everything you need to be able to drive on the highways here in California. The interior has been completely restored. Leather kit interior, power windows with original crank style handles. This vehicle was restored sometime in the late 90s, but has been perfectly loved, taken care of ever since. Up next, we have our 1963 Ford Thunderbird, the Bullet Bird as it's known. This vehicle has cold blowing AC, power steering, power windows, fully loaded. Repainted once in its life, you'll see that the interior retains most of its original charm, although has been restored in bits and pieces at a time. But this vehicle also drives the highway fantastically. Up next, the 1939 Ford Coupe. This was the boss's personal project car, and as you'll see, he had it retrofitted with mechanical fuel injection stacks, AC. Now this vehicle has not been completed, so will be sold as is. Now this one, for all you Pontiac lovers, is the 87 Pontiac Fiero, the GT Coupe, as they would see with the fastback style. This car was rear-engined, fairly ahead of its time, or a product of its time, depending how you look at it. 5-speed, 6-cylinder vehicle, cloth interior. Now this vehicle does start, although she does not maintain idle. So I assume air, fuel, something going on there. This vehicle is also being sold as is. This is the 68 Mercury Montego. We're not too sure whether or not this car will be for sale yet, but as you'll see, it's got a great color, it's got the louvered hood, a great stance with the 1940s center dishes, smooth wheels, an overall beautiful car. We will advise whether or not this vehicle will ultimately be for sale. Black leather interior, original 351 engine. If we pan over here to the 48 Ford convertible, most of you will know this type of vehicle from the Back to the Future movies. This vehicle was done with all leather interior, carpeting. It's got a 350 engine, ready for the highway, column automatic, roll up and down windows with the original frame type convertible top. Besides the powertrain, this vehicle is about as modern as you can get, with all the creature amenities, minus AC power steering, although this vehicle is very easy to steer, believe it or not. Now this was Bill's personal 32 Roadster. It is a glass car, but it was finished in the late 70s through the early 80s and retains most of its period correct items of that era. Everything from the Halibrand differential to the incredible rear tires. This vehicle he's had for decades and was his personal Roadster. You'll see over here our all-steel Roadster. This vehicle was finished in the 60s. A true testament to that era of the custom scene. We're still working on this one, so stay tuned. Back to the fiberglass. We just got the new wheels on it. It is a supercharged 350. I mean, this vehicle is built for speed, as you can see, just by looking at that engine bay. Now the real beauty of this car is the engine. If we look underneath, we'll see that it still retains its original Hemi. Power steering, heater core, generator. This car at the time was almost a peak of luxury, considering all the other brands. Up next we have the brand known for safety, Volvo. This Volvo still retains its original 4-cylinder engine. It's got a Weber carburetor. That way, ease of drivability, highway. If you come over here, you'll see that it does still have its original 4-speed transmission and original interior. The pink accents, the cloth inserts, the dash pad. I mean, considering the California sun takes its toll on many things, this car is a beautiful survivor. Who doesn't love a wagon? Now this here's our Ford delivery, and as you'll see, it's been done in a real custom fashion. Everything from the updated interior with its bits and pieces from, I would say, the mid-late 90s, early 2000s era. This vehicle was completely restored at that time. Believe it or not, has the original Boyd Coddington wheels still there. Naturally, as you see, it's been sitting for some years. It will need tires, it will need a respray, but the engine is still intact. It is an automatic, but it does have a Ford engine with the larger block, valve covers, air cleaner. This was a beautiful car and still has the potential to be so. You'll see the Frenched headlights with all of the filled-in body panels. Up next, we have our 1999 Mercedes SL 600, known for its V12 engine. This vehicle does not have keys, so will be sold as is. Has a clean title, hasn't been driven in approximately about 6 years. When it was driven, it's beautiful. The V12, there's nothing like it. Coming on over to the Jaguar. I believe it's a 1998 Jaguar, 6-cylinder. Still runs and drives, although does have the check engine light. AC does still work. Clean title car. Last but not least, the Ford Show, which we all know that the Ford Show is a hidden gem. And let me show you why. The Ford Show is known for its Yamaha designed 6-cylinder engine. This dual overhead cam engine was the sleeper of the 90s. You may remember this car from the Santa Claus, of course, with Tim Allen. Tim, if you're watching this, we'd love to have you here. Up next is our 1970 Buick Riviera. As you'll see, this car still retains its original leather interior, still has its original 8-track cassette with the FM radio, power windows, air conditioning, automatic column shift, V8 engine. This vehicle was rebuilt mechanically, but unfortunately has sat only because of the paint work required. You'll just see the cracks in the paint, but this is a very worthy project. Body is straight, it's beautiful. 1970 Buick Riviera. Up next, we have the 1954 Hudson Jetliner. This vehicle is an automatic, restored at one time with the interior work as you'll see it. I anticipate this vehicle ran and drove up until about 10-15 years ago when we started to rebuild the flathead motor. If you come over here, you'll see that it retains all of its original chrome hubcaps, Hudson logos, and still has that original flathead engine. They began the disassembly but did not complete. You'll see that the carburetor is fairly newer in the sense of that was the most recent thing that was done to the vehicle. The coolest thing, the cable operated wiper blades. Technology that you just didn't see for too long, but they did what they could with what they had. Now our boss Bill Carey, truly a staple of the community. If you look at all these trophies, we have some going back to the 1970s. Bill started his career working for General Motors, ultimately became one of the top grossing salesmen of Neighbors Cadillac, right before taking over the business for his father. Some of these trophies go back to the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. Bill truly is a staple of the community, really means a lot to a lot of people, a really good friend. Now all the vehicles we just saw can be viewed on our website, careysclassics.com. With any information in regards to purchasing these vehicles, my info is on the website, so please feel free to contact me directly. Once again, my name is Pedro. Give me a call. Hope to hear from you soon. Take care.